What is going on, everybody out there? Fascinating graveyard. Today we are here on this beautiful and slightly windy day here at the Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery. And we're gonna visit the grave of Glenn McDuffy. He is the man that is in this very, very iconic photo, kissing that nurse in New York. I'm gonna tell you the story of how that photo came to be and a little bit of a backstory about the other men who were going around and lying, saying that they were indeed that soldier in that photo. The only man in that photo is the one we're here to visit today, and that is Glenn McDuffy. Without further ado, let's get right into the story. Glenn McDuffy was born August 3rd, 1927 in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Now, fast forward about 15 years or so, we're in the early 1940s, and America is a vastly different country than it is now because we are in World War II. We're fighting for our very freedom. We're fighting for our very lives. We're fighting on a couple different fronts. One, against the Germans, and number two, against the Japanese. Now, Glenn, he's about 15, he's turning 16 years of age, and possibly it was his patriotic duty, but he wants to join the service. Now, at that time, to join the military, you had to be 18 years of age. You could be 17 years of age and still join, but you had to have your parents' consent. A lot of guys who were 15 and 16 years of age, they still joined the military. Oftentimes, they would use forged documents, a fake ID. And recruiters, they're not really concerned if you're really 18 or if you're 15. They just need bodies to join the war effort. So getting a fake ID, fake papers, that's not the problem. Getting Glenn's parents to sign off on their 15-year-old son going off to some godforsaken land to possibly die, that's another. So Glenn tells his mom and dad, hey, I want to join the Navy. Mom's not having it, dad's not having it. And they're looking at each other and they're like, no way, Jose. Glenn looks at his dad and he said, yo, Dad, you're the one that told me that you faked your papers when you were 16 years of age to join the military so you could fight in World War I. Huh? Got him. See? What gives, Dad? What's up? And so his dad, well, you do got a point. I did the same thing that you're trying to do right now. So at first, Glenn is told by his dad, he's like, all right, I'll sign off. But after some careful thinking and consideration, Glenn's dad says, hey, listen, it's dangerous. Yeah, sure, you're joining the Navy, which is technically kind of sort of not as dangerous as joining the Marines or the Army, but those German U-boats, he's probably reading the newspapers, those U-boats, they are going crazy and they're torpedoing lots of US ships and lots of sailors are dying. So finally, his dad says this, he said, check this out. If you could do what I did and sneak your way in without me or your mom signing any paperwork, we will not stop you from joining the service. So Glenn says, okay, cool. So he goes down to the recruiter and he says, I'm 17 years old, I want to join. He says, okay, cool. Here's the paperwork. Get your mom and dad to sign it and bring it back to me. So Glenn, he takes it. Now he has to take this paperwork and go get it notarized. He goes to the notary. Now he says, yeah, I need this notarized to join the Navy. And he sees his mom and dad's forged signatures. But the notary doesn't know that. All the notary wants is a 50-cent fee to notarize the documents. However, he does ask, he says, well, where's your mom and dad at? Shouldn't they be in the office with me to kind of like go over stuff? He said, you know, my mom's sleeping and my dad, he's at work. He's at the mill working. What do you want? You gonna sign him yes or no? And the notary says, just give me your 50 cents. So he gets them notarized, takes it to the recruiter's office, and next thing you know, he's being whisked off to basic training. Now, we're gonna fast forward a bit in time. Now, we're gonna fast forward a couple of years later to August 14th, 1945. So at this time, Glenn is on leave. He's dating this girl that lives in Brooklyn. He's a small town kid, and he meets this girl that lives in New York, this big city, and the subway system is crazy. Fortunately enough, she taught him what trains to take to get to her house. So he's on the train, and he gets off of the train, and he's walking up the steps, and he's in his uniform. And this lady, stranger, comes up to him and says, "Sailor, congratulations, congratulations." And she's like patting him on the back. And he's like, "Congratulations for what?" And she says, "The war's over." He said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "The war's over." He says, "Where did you hear this from?" She said, I heard it from the Times building." And everybody is like looking around, and they're in disbelief. And on the Times building, it's saying that the war is over. The war is over, and the Japanese have surrendered. And everybody starts literally celebrating in the street. And there's just, it's almost like an instant parade. That kind of feeling will never be replicated ever in American history. Never. So everybody is just elated, everybody's happy, everybody's excited, jumping up and down. And Glenn, he's so ecstatic. However, the first thing that comes to his mind is his brother. His brother is a POW. He's being held in, I think, the island of Bhutan. He's being held by the Japanese. However, later on, his brother would make it back home safe and sound. He's worrying about his brother, but then he's also excited that the war is finally over. And everybody's going just crazy. And he sees this nurse, and he doesn't know her. And the nurse reaches out to him to shake his hand. Never met her in his life. And he just kissed her. Now, Glenn said that this kiss, it wasn't a wet one, but there was no tongue involved, but it was a wet one. So, and just by dumb luck, there was a man who had a camera who took that iconic photo of this sailor kissing this unnamed nurse. And if you can see in that photo how Glenn has his arm where he can see, because he was worried that she had a boyfriend and that he was waiting for the boyfriend to come out of nowhere to punch his lights out. So he was just making sure nobody was, going to do that. But that photo, there's two iconic photos that you think of when it comes to World War II. You think of the flag, the American flag planting at Iwo Jima, and you think of that kiss, something that nowadays everyone would frown upon it, but this was a time when this country, it's just a different time, honestly, just a different time. Now, after he got out of the service, Glenn would later try to make his way out as a baseball player, which didn't come to fruition. And he also got a job working for the Postal Service. Glenn McDuffy did not see that photo of him kissing that nurse. I couldn't believe this when I heard this until 1960. So you fast forward years later, and then people are starting to wonder, who is that guy in that picture? Who's the girl in the picture? Who are those people? And you had a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork claiming that they were that sailor in that very iconic photo. You actually had about 12 guys claiming that they were the sailor in that photo. And one of those guys that claimed to be the kissing sailor was one George Mendoza. And for a long time, everyone believed that George actually was the sailor. I mean, if you really look at the photos and study them, you would believe it. As a matter of fact, for a moment, I believed it. But after doing a little bit more research, come to find out that old George was a fraudster. Who knows why he felt the need to do that. And for years, Glenn would be so angry that this guy was taking the credit for being the sailor in that photo. And so one day, Glenn, who at the time was living in Houston, he was watching Channel 13 and he sees a story involving some kind of a forensic artist, sculptor, who reconstructs from a skull, basically Jane and John Doe's unsolved murder victims, and she basically constructs what they possibly would have looked like in real life. So from what I read, Glenn contacted her and he says, hey, listen, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I'm the sailor in that photo and there's a guy going around claiming that it's him. That's not him, that's me. This George clown is going around saying that and he's making money, going doing appearances and stuff like that. That ain't him, it's me. So she eventually meets up with him, and through careful analysis, so she basically had him pose in the same way, and she did basically a reconstruction of his face now versus then. She studied the bone structure in his face. She studied his ears, his chin, everything and anything that she could possibly see. Now, both George and Glenn, they got pretty good sized schnozzes. So, but I guess when you get older, your nose keeps growing. Fun fact, I didn't know that. So, after a careful analysis, she concludes that without a shadow of a doubt that no, Glenn McDuffy is the man in that picture kissing that nurse. And, finally, Glenn was giving credit where credit was due. Now, George did try to sue him for a time. However, when he went to the Lois Gibson lady and they did a story about how he was, in fact, the real deal, he dropped the suit. Goes to show you that this man right here was the man, the legend himself, the kissing sailor, Glenn McDuffy. In the last years of his life, Glenn was able to finally get the notoriety that he deserved, in my opinion. And he would go to gun shows, World War II shows, history shows, wherever he was able to get to within a reasonable distance. And for $10, you could kiss Glenn McDuffy and he would recreate the pose and sign photos of that pose. It's quite a remarkable story based off of a very remarkable and iconic photo. This is the final resting place of Glenn McDuffy. VJ Day Kissing Sailor, love it. I love it. I really wish I would have done this video sooner, but better late than never. So thank you for your service, and rest in peace to you and all the soldiers in the cemetery. If it wasn't for men like Mr. McDuffy, well, I definitely probably wouldn't be here, so. Okay, guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you on the next video. Have a good one. Peace out.